Good evening and welcome to Free for All Friday. This is our 42nd version of our get together where we ask gardeners to come and celebrate growing and cultivate problem solving with us.
Coming to you from gardenataz.org. I'm Janet McConovich,
I'm Stephen Nicola.
and that's us. And we often look like that, especially when I've been crawling through bushes.
Yep. I look like that even when I'm not crawling through bushes.
And our website is gardenataz.org, where we have no ads, no commercial associations, no. We just have a place where we can put what we've been writing for 30 some years because we've been gardening professionally for 40 years, talking to a lot of gardeners. We're curious about lots of different things, and we've learned so much that we want to be able to, A, share what we've learned and learn more. So that's why we're here,
Yep.
and anybody can come. Just go to our Fridays page. The link is always there for the current meeting going on, as well as recordings of the free-for-alls that have gone before. And each recording has a list of what the topics are that we talked about so that you can zip through and just pick out the pieces that you want to do. That's what we intend for people to be able to find the information that they need and have fun creating information for other people. So are there any questions? Let's see. Before we got started officially, we did handle some questions about what?
Box
Boxwood tree moth has been cited,
sided.
both the very small ones and slightly larger larval state. And what do we do about them? Well, you can use BT. We talked about BT as a powder. It's a bacteria that affects just the Lepidoptera, just the caterpillars of moths and butterflies. And you dust it onto the plant, and the caterpillars pick it up when they either eat the leaf or when they're walking on it, and it basically stops them from being able to eat, and they die. Um, Barb, who had notified us of this, and we're very glad she did, we need to have our eyes open for this new pest, said that they're wrong. They said it would be sometime in June. Well, the thing is, we don't know yet. This isn't pest that's new to the continent. We're pretty sure, those who are watching it are pretty sure that there were three generations of it every year in Pennsylvania, down near Philadelphia. Whether there'll be three generations here or not, we don't know. We don't know what it'll do with the weather or not. But if you want to keep your boxwood, you're going to have to try to control boxwood tree moth, and a lot of that control is going to involve watching all the time so that you can nip in the bud, literally, what's hatching out. Other than that, we did talk about some things, but I think you need to join us live for a free for all Friday because it is a free for all.
Yep. We
Everybody
never know
talks
what
about it.
anybody's going to ask.
Yeah, I was surprised that nobody asked about these pictures.
No, no, you can notice how they're turning their way up.
Yeah,
It
the artist wanted the trees to grow upside down, but trees say no, no, we have apical dominance and we are going to turn ourselves up. It might take us 5 or 10 years, but we will twist ourselves around and grow up to the light,
we
away
will
from
see.
gravity. Okay, then thanks for follow-up. People asked about what happened to the shrub, the pine in our hedge, weeping white pine, dwarf white pine, dwarf white pine, dwarf white pine, dwarf white pine. That's going to be a hedge to be someday a caterpillar. And this one didn't look good when things broke from the winter, and looks worse now. So now the borers got it. It probably got weak, got surrounded. Um, so we got a new one. It arrived now. It was the last one that the nursery had, and they sent me a picture, said, "Is it okay? Can we think it's really going to do well once it gets out of that little pot." Yep, it's here. It's at our place now. And people have asked, so what are the roots like? Haven't got it out of the pot yet, but as soon as I do, I'll show you what's in there, and we'll see how it makes it. Needles are very small, but the plant itself has got great buds on every tip, so maybe it'll do well. And someone else asked, so did you cut the boxwood the rest of the way down? The boxwood that you showed us that the leaf miners had hatched out of the leaves and were buzzing around all around the plant and laying eggs for the next infestation, the next generation of leaf miners. And I showed you that my answer was I'm going to cut it down and get rid of all of the boxwood foliage so that all of those eggs are thrown away. And I'll cut half of it now, let them finish laying eggs, and cut the other half later. I have not cut the other half later because it's been raining and cold all week long and they haven't been flying. They're still just sitting there. So I'm waiting for the activity to finish and then I'll cut it back. And I'll be sure to show you what happens then. Questions? I see a hand.
Nancy has a hand up.
Okay, Nancy, what's up?
Hi, Jennifer Stephen.
Whoa.
Ooh. Sorry.
I think if you've got two devices going, one of them needs to be on mute or moved to the far part of the house.
Okay, I think we're okay now.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
good.
Is there any variety of anemone that does not try to take over the entire subdivision?
The dwarf doubles tend to be slower, but all anemones are going to run. All of the Japanese anemones that bloom late in the year, they do eventually want to take over. They might be kind of calm at first. And if they've got a lot of competition, they might just pop up here and there, but eventually they're top drawer, top competitors. But they're dwarf and double, and they seem to go slow. Kind of like,
Do you know any of the variety names?
okay, we have three of them here, so you'd think I'd remember what names they were. Angel White.
Okay.
I think one of them is called Angel White. But you'll know them by the height on their tag because they are all dwarfs. They're only about 18 inches tall rather than being 3-4 feet tall or tall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're short.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's it so far.
Yeah. Snow in summer is starting to bloom.
If you give me that,
This is very crazy spring weather. And people have been complaining as we speak to each other this week about how cold it is, but we're not the only things that are cold sensitive. Judith sent a picture of her peony. No, this I think was Michelle's peony. But anyway, we got some pictures and some comments from people about my plants that are drooping over. This is cold damage, short of being killed by frost. Plants will often droop over like that, and quite often they stand up. Michelle was telling me that, yep, they stood up the next day. So it explains why our penstemon, this one might be called grape cooler. It's a different species
Yeah.
than other penstemons. It's one of the penstemons that we put in the yard in the hopes of getting some hybrids between different species. But look at it, the branches are snaking on the ground. They didn't stand back up after they got the cold, but they're still alive and still blooming. They'll make interesting vase cut flowers. And Michelle, is this a helianthemum? See it laying over? She said it stood up the next day. I cannot tell what that is.
I don't know. It came from the zoo, though. I mean, no, not the zoo, the Waterford Library. And it blooms purple stalks.
With purple stalks.
Yep.
Man.
Almost like a verbena or I don't know.
Okay.
I can't remember what it is, but it spreads almost like a
candy
thyme.
top? Like a thyme. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it might be a helianthemum. Well, I'm going to check that out as it blooms. You'll have to keep in touch with me.
When it blooms, I'll send you a picture.
Okay.
Great.
Probably we could check the leaf out. And when they stand up, you might find that there was some damage to the newer foliage that was just filling out. So on Judith's peonies, when they stood back up, the edges had been damaged because they weren't expanded yet. They weren't fully expanded. And that's where you can get botrytis starting. Oh, that's what I forgot to put in was the pictures of Deb's peonies. So sometimes you'll get that bud that was forming to form the flower bud at the tip. And that gets hit by the cold this time of year. Now it's dead, and that tissue is more susceptible to botrytis, and that's where your infection starts. So if you've had a peony hit like that, you want to watch and take out any of the little brown buds that aren't going to open. It's a great picture.
Ruth is asking, when is the time to cut back plants that you want to bloom, but you don't want them to get too long and leggy?
The general rule of thumb, because most of those plants that you're trying to keep from being leggy are later later bloomers that are blooming in the middle of summer or later. And the general rule of thumb is like mums, that you plant them, you clip them back 3 times by the 4th of July, 3 times by the 4th. So maybe in May and June and July, you clip them back. But it's kind of different for every plant. And let me see, some of the ones that I don't like to get leggy are things like bee balm. You can cut it back. Some of the grasses you can cut back. Steve Still was always telling me if people didn't like the way the miscanthus got too high and fell out to the sides, they can always just cut it back. So it's just grass, cut it back, let it be shorter and stockier. So you might have to experiment a little bit, but 3 times by the 4th is a good general rule.
That's it.
Okay. That flower is a Camassia flower. It's the bulb that's in our rain garden at the Detroit Zoo at the Waterford Library. And it's a great moist, even wet area bulb, Camassia, Indian Quamash. That one is called Blue Danube. Even though it was raining, we went out and walked around in the garden, just looked to see what was going on. We walked with Hank and Sharon Otten over in South Haven, Michigan, many years ago now. And they told us that they made a point of every single day walking the garden together. And they did not take tools. They put a glass of wine in their hand to keep them from stopping and doing things. What you're doing is just going and looking, because that's really wonderful. Because plants, the first thing I did was chop this down to nothing and say, I'm going to dig you out of there. But I'll tell you, it's cheerful to open the garage and have these beautiful flowers pushing in against you.
And sometimes there's a hummingbird on them.
Right there. Yep. So the Weigelia have started blooming. And Sonia sent us these. Ours are a little harder to picture, but the white trilliums go through that stage of turning pink and then pinker. And you miss those things if you don't. I mean, no time at all, that wild lettuce, the white lettuce in the woods is going to cover that right over. And the spirea that Steve likes so much that has the variegated leaves, he went nuts over this from what's it, Broken Arrow?
Broken Arrow.
And he likes that the buds start out pink and then turn to white just before they open. So there's that double color in there. I still prefer Spirea prunifolia, the upright spirea, which has just finished blooming now, and it's got more brown flowers on it than white. But I like it because it's nice in the fall too. And the bluebells are blooming. You know, every year as the bulbs bloom, it strikes me that they only do this once a year. If you don't see them now, you've got to wait all the way until next year. And who knows between now and next year whether you'll be in the same place to be able to see them bloom. I think we need to enjoy our gardens more, go out more every day. The snow and summer, Cerastium tomentosum, it's an evergreen ground cover with gray leaves, is blooming in it. And to notice what's blooming at the same time is how you end up putting together your combinations or arranging to not have everything in a garden bloom at the same time. So the Brunnera is blooming with the Cerastium, or you could say that the Brunnera is finishing up as the Cerastium starts. But you can note that by looking out into your own garden. And it's a good time to look and say, you know, if I wanted to hold it up, this is a clematis, a bush clematis, so not a vining clematis. It's called Stand By Me. And I laugh every time I say the name because it doesn't stand up well at all.
It doesn't stand.
As soon as it's about 2 inches taller than this, it's going to fall all over the ground. So it's a good time to say, oh, all right, now is a time when I could put some sticks around it to hold it up and see if it can do more for itself than flop around and poke up through this or that or the other plant. And you get such sturdy ones. There are some things that gas plant never needs to be staked. That plant is straight, even if it's growing in the shade. It's straight up and down.
I've seen a big bird land on the stalk, you know, jumping
Really?
off and
That's
briefly and not have it break. It just kind of, and then he flitters down. It was a mourning dove being a little clumsy.
They're funny birds. And it's a good time to look and things like kiwi vine, it's blooming now. And they smell wonderful. It is the lightest honey scent. I can't even describe it. But you don't see the flowers unless you get your head in there and look under the leaves to see them. But you can smell them as you walk past. And once you get your head underneath, you see things like this. I think it's a robin, and I think that's foliage from a hosta. It would have been fun to watch them pluck that up from the garden and tuck it into there to get it to do that.
Yep.
And it's a good place for them. I mean, it's right there. It's right there in the top of the arbor.
They're pretty safe there.
One of the other arbors has the euonymus that I put back there growing on it, and it's got a sport that's all yellow. Um, every time that happens, I wish that that could be the main part of the plant because it's such a brilliant color.
We've had a sport on that every year, but it's never held.
No, it's just not, they're not as strong as the ones with green in them and they end up dying back.
Yep.
Red-twig dogwood does that too with the all white branches. Boy, those are cool when they get all white on the red-twig dogwoods, the very good red-twig dogwoods. Steve and I just noticed this year, and maybe it's because the deer always go for them. This is our native giant Solomon seal, Polygonum commutatum. Sometimes it's 6 feet tall. Ours is about 4 feet now. But usually the deer come through and eat it. They often won't eat the Asian one until they've eaten this one down to nothing. So we were looking this year and look at those beautiful flowers. Aren't those gorgeous? Somebody talked to us this week who had her head underneath her. Oh, they have Polygonatum biflorum, the smaller native, shorter native Solomon seal. And she said, it smells wonderful. I've never really smelled it before. Let's see. Oh, and as I was walking out to look at the Stand By Me clematis, there it is right there. I looked and I went, well, what's coming up there? And then I ran inside to check the list. There's 4 of them. One here, one here, one here, and one we can't quite see over there. Those are zone 8 to 10 Amarini hybrids. Tomoko, I put them in there to just see whether or not we could get something that was going to bloom in the summer in the shade in among the hostas. And I'd love to see them do it. You saw them in Washington at the National Arm, Steve, right? The spider.
Yeah.
So they made it through the winter and they're zone 8
I
and
don't
plant.
understand.
I don't either. This time of year, you can even appreciate things like the weeds. Now, this is a weed. It's a native annual plant, daisy fleabane, Erigeron annua, and it definitely spreads itself all over the place. But look how sweet the buds and the flowers are. You can enjoy that for a little bit and then take it out afterwards and say, okay, look at it through the window, and then later on you can just move it out of there. And we've told so many people that you don't have to prune shrubs if you find out what they actually want to look like. Those used, this was a 3-foot ball, trimmed 3 feet tall and 3 feet wide that I dragged around from the front of the house when we moved in here and we're letting it loose there. This is going to be 20 feet, and let's look how beautiful it is. Beautiful and soft and stretching its arms out. I'm going to be able to replace the arbors with a living arbor going across that path. No, to whoever asked, we haven't seen any activity, any caterpillars on the pearly everlasting or the pussy's toes yet. We hope that it's going to happen soon, but when we do see it, we'll see the tip leaves knit together, and we haven't seen any of that happening yet.
I looked hard, and there might be 1 or 2 in there, but not easy to see.
I thought I saw some, but I didn't want to pull them apart because they were so
Yep.
tiny. I said
They're
might
too
get
small.
discovered. And you asked whether I had seen this. Yes, I saw this. Sometimes you definitely don't want to have your tools with you because you'll stop and say, oh my gosh, I have to get all that chickweed out of the patio. You can get the chickweed out of the patio later. Um, I, I think it's actually kind of nice. It frames the bird pattern, the bird mosaic in our patio.
Yep.
No questions coming in?
The Nancy mentioned that a garden speaker on the East Coast called that chopping the plants down the Chelsea chop. The cutting the plants for later bloom.
Uh-huh.
And then Diane asks about how about cutting back garden phlox for Orange Perfection funiculata in particular. Some of her stems were laying down last year, so I thought she would try it.
I would, given that phlox blooms after the days start getting short at the end of summer, I would treat it like a mum, and I'd clip it now. And the rule of thumb, another rule of thumb besides the three times by the fourth is that you cut about a third of the plant off. So when it's about 8 inches high, cut 2 inches off, let it branch, let it grow up again, cut a third of it off. As long as you don't make it too thick so that it doesn't get
Yeah, you may have to thin
mildew
it while you're
prone.
cutting.
Yeah.
Nancy says deer cut back their flocks.
Yeah, yeah. Deer and groundhogs like phlox too. Boy, they just munch on the phlox.
Carrie has oak leaf hydrangeas chlorotic. It's the second year planted close to where a maple is cut down. Is it an iron or magnesium deficiency? The description for both seems the same.
It could be a deficiency when you get chlorotic leaves, and quite often that's the diagnosis that you'll get from an arborist or a specialist will come in and say, this is chlorotic, let's treat it with iron or let's give it a micronutrient fertilizer. But it's also true that you get deficiencies in a plant when the root system is inadequate. It could be that root system is growing too slowly to go with the top of the plant. So you can not bypass, you can kind of beef the plant up until its roots grow by using a water-soluble fertilizer, one of the blue powders that's mixed up, that's formulated for acid-loving plants. It'll have sulfur in it, it'll have magnesium, it's have chelated iron. And when you fertilize that plant, water the whole plant, get the leaves wet because the leaves can absorb some of that directly. If you find that the plant greens up when you do that, then yes, there's a deficiency going on. If it doesn't green up when you do that, or it greens up for a little bit and then goes back again, I'd check the roots. I hate to sound like a broken record. We need a new metaphor or analogy. People don't know what a broken record is anymore. Perennial lupin.
That is true.
We really, really love it when we see the visions that we have for the garden being fulfilled. They're the best surprises we can get. I love when I cut something back and it actually does come back. People say, wow, you're so brave. I say, no, every time I cut it back, I think, I hope you're going to come back. This is the dappled willow that we cut back. And that's today. Look at all that beautiful. All the new foliage has all the color on those dappled willows. The one that I cut back last year, it's only the side branches, the new growth on the side branches that have got the color on it. And that's all 1 year's growth on that dappled willow. That's why I cut it all the way back, keeping it under control. And such a cool thing to see our perennial lupin not only becoming a big, lusty plant, but dropping seeds right there behind
Yeah.
the bitter crest. There's one of the seedlings coming up right there. There are some others coming up downstream of it. And I'm going to need to make sure to take these calendula that self-sowed in there, the self-sown annual, out so that they don't smother it and get the other things out of there. It's just fun to see them say, yes, I'm settling in and deciding to stay. Like our hemlock, this was such a pitiful root ball. Oh my gosh.
Oh, if you would have judged it by what it looked like last fall, you would have said, why are you even keeping it
Yeah.
here? But we both knew because we knew that the buds were still soft and tender, and we just had a feeling it was going to come back.
This is its third year, and it said, okay, I got it now. I got this, you guys. I got this. And some of you were here to hear about this at the in our extra time last Friday, but it's something we want to keep crowing about. This is an Alaska false cypress that we put on the side of our house. We want to have something there that I can keep cutting and making Charlie Brown Christmas trees out of the top. And when we planted it, I wanted a little tiny one so I could have a good root system, and we couldn't find one anywhere. Steve finally just stopped and bought one of the smallest size that he could get with its burlap root ball and brought it home. And it was buried too deep in the root ball. I took about 5 inches of soil off of it. By the time I got done troweling and sifting the soil off of the roots, this is what I had. Flare is down here, and very few roots, but a lot of adventitious roots wrapped right around the trunk. And I had to cut all those. It requires being brave. Steve won't do it. He says, no, you go right ahead. I had to cut this root off completely because I had to cut it to here so it would grow outward from that point. I couldn't cut it any place along the way where it turned or it would grow that same way again. I had to cut this one off. I had to cut this one that wrapped from the far side. It had so few roots when I put it in. And I knew that it would end up like this spruce that the trunk got to the size of the original root ball, and then it ran into those roots. It was buried about a foot deep. I've troweled out the extra soil after we took it down. You can see how flat the side is and the roots that are wrapped around it. And you can see its neighbor tree, and there were 4 others on the property. They're all going to end up having to come down too. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that happen. So I cut them, and I took every day took water out to the tree and kept the what roots it had moist and the soil around it moist, and watched as the next year it grew up above my stakes. Stakes are there to put something to keep the bucks from rubbing on it. They don't browse it, but they'll rub on it. I don't want them to do that yet. And now you can see it's not just one layer above the stakes. It's grown about 15 inches above that. I said, okay, good. I think you're taking off. And that's what we want to see happen. So celebrate that stuff. And you gotta actually look at your visions and say, what did I expect? And say, when is it going to happen? It's happening with we planted these green giant arborvitaes. Each one was as big as one side branch here. They were just little twigs. And for 3 years, they just kind of went in all directions. They grew sideways. And I said, what are you doing? This year, they've developed a top, they've developed a leader, and now they're going to take off. I've seen green giants grow 5 feet in a year. Watch these guys just stay.
Yeah, look out now.
Yep. And now, finally, Kristen, you helped us find in your garden a piece of the variegated obedient plant, which stays much more calm and not so crazy as the green obedient plant. And we like it a lot, and it blooms late. We wanted an upright element here to be a focal point in this garden, surrounded by these mounded peony, geranium, uh, hellebore, and vernal sweet pea. And this year, it's really finally come into its own.
Yeah.
And there's the little piece of, what did we call it? It's Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, a stilby that I put out there. I said I could use some purple foliage out there. We'll see how it does.
It might have to move a little bit away from that.
Yeah.
Oh, dragging it.
But I'm doing the same thing on the other side, and it's now developed. Diane, there's the Siberian iris that you gave us as our vertical element, surrounded by pinks, gas plant, and behind it, the turtle head, all mounded plants around it, and it with its finer textured upright look. Whoop. Let's see. Oh, and I told you about this when the neighbors said that we could determine what to plant in the place where they took out their big juniper next to our pine. And I said, okay, here's what I had to show you with pasted in pictures. I said, here's what we're looking at. We're going to look at something tall like this hydrangea, framed by something gold on each side, mounded, and something purple on each side, since our neighbor likes that kind of look. And all we were able to show you was the beginning of it. But now look at it. This is last year, and that was its first full year growing. And now this year, even at the beginning of the year, there's our gold and gold on either side of it, and the hydrangea in the middle with the purple back in black sedum, and the veronica over here. The candy corn is the type of spirea that gives us the yellow, and I cheated a little bit and added sedum angelina to expand the yellow. On the other side is
Dutzia.
it's a Deutzia. What's its name? Lemon Lust? No. It's a gold leaf Deutzia.
It's a gold leaf white flower one.
Yeah,
Shoot.
which I buoyed with some coral colored heuchera. It's just great to see things actually happening, and you don't see that unless you go out and look. Diane wrote us a while back about her bamboo, that she'd gotten tired of how tall it was and how it got knocked down by the snow. She's in Portland, Oregon, so she can grow bamboo year round. She said, and then when they came and re-roofed the house, that was the last straw. We're going to take that stuff out of there. So she had somebody dig it out and ask what to plant there. And it's just a little tiny, her walkway here, the neighbor's walkway there, just this little tiny strip. I said, well, sky pencil holly is quite nice as a narrow hedge. You could put that in. And I thought, that's great. That looks good. She said, no, I need more than that. So I sent her a list of about 8 or 10 ground cover type plants she could put in for some different color foliage. And she bought them all and sent me a picture. Here's what I'm going to do. I thought, oh no, she's going to crowd them right out of being able to grow well. But look, it looks pretty good, don't you think?
Yep, it sure did.
Sure appreciate it when people send us what happens next. Yeah. And granted, we're going to lose the walkway.
Yeah, the sedum will take it.
Yeah. Like I'm glad we've made it. We made it all the way from our first strip here that we made the bed. We made it all the way out to the road now. We no longer have a road, an edge of lawn out here to creep into the garden. And that's a great thing to see. Any questions coming in?
Yes.
Chardonnay pearls. Yes, Barb. Chardonnay pearls. That's what that Deutzia is. Thank you. Thank you.
Barb is also say she's planning on doing the Chelsea chop on her sedum autumn joy to hopefully reduce flopping when it blooms.
Yes, you can
How do
definitely
you-
do that.
How do you suggest I prune it back without leaving it looking like nothing but chopped hollow stems until it regrows?
It regrows pretty quickly, but you're going to have to put up with that. That is the problem with cutting things back, is that they don't have that fresh, finished look. There's nothing you can do about that. Just go ahead and cut it. That's
I
my-
also wonder if it's autumn joy that needs to be divided. Is it the inside that's weak and narrow, and they're flopping and pushing the outside ones over?
It could be, but it's another one of the ones that we were talking to Steve Still about in Minnesota. Steve Still wrote a book called Herbaceous Ornamental Plants,
Yeah.
and we used it when I taught at the community college as our textbook. And he helped start, well, he's a good friend of Pierre Benrup's. They started the Perennial Plant Association together. And he told me one time, he said, just have them cut it back. It's one thing you can do. And what you can do is you can cut it all the way to the ground. Then it doesn't look like it's hollow. It just cut it all the way down.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have we seen any Kerner blue butterflies? I thought they were on the west side of the state, but talked to someone from Owasso,
We
who
have not
swears she had them, so she was going to get lupin.
We have not seen Carter blue butterflies. They're on the endangered list, and it's one of the reasons we wanted perennial lupin to grow for us here on the sand where perennial lupin is supposed to be. And now that it's taken, we thought we'd probably check with maybe the Young Entomologist Society and see whether we might be able to get a chrysalis from someone, or a few chrysalises to see if we can get a population started. But I'm told that there are very few, and they're geographically separated from each other, so it's not real likely that we're going to see them. I'm glad if they've got them in Owasso, though. I'm really glad if they come back. It's a beautiful little butterfly.
We kind of hope if it's like the Field of Dreams, plant it and they will come.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we hope for.
Yeah. I was talking with somebody this week, and they asked about what was that plant in the garden that looked like bee balm stacked on top. This is Phlomis russelliana. It's not a native plant, but it's a cool plant. And those will be opening up kind of a lavender color later on. Flowers stacked up like a tower, like a Dr. Seuss tower.
Yep. Ruth has a question. I started a cutting of Rugosa rose under a glass jar last fall. It seems to have rooted. The leaves are yellow between the veins, interveinal chlorosis. What could cause that?
Not enough roots.
Yep.
Clip a couple of the leaves off. Let the ones that are there do a better job for you. But yeah, if there's not enough root, it's going to be chlorotic for a while. It doesn't mean that it's going to die. We had, what did we have? That I said, let's just see what it takes to kill this plant. Just growing in water, getting no nutrients at all. Anyway, you'd be amazed at what a plant can put up with.
That's it right now.
Okay. This is a good time of year to understand that pests have a number one tactic, which is hide the evidence that they're there for as long as possible. For instance, people tell us many times, they say, overnight, something came and ate my columbine. No, it didn't happen overnight. It did happen that the columbine sawfly that was eating the leaf got into its final stages as a larva, and they're big enough then that they eat a leaf a day. But they were eating all of the time and eating the leaves off the. So you need to catch things earlier. Birds actually look for damage patterns. They are keen to those kinds of things. So there's a very good extension. There are so many good extension bulletins out there. Wisconsin has a good one about a columbine leaf miter and sawfly. If you look there, since we've never taken a picture of this particular sawfly, Steve. I don't think
Nope.
so. But they're just the same color of the leaf. And when they're tiny, these are big ones. These are ones
Those
that
are good size.
these
Yeah.
guys can eat a leaf a night. When they're tiny, you don't see them, but you know they're out there. You know they're out there. They are. There are anyway. There are things like this bulletin to tell you where to find them, when to look for them. They're out there eating right now. Here's a columbine, one set of columbine in our yard, and all these columbine came from seed. I remember putting
We
seed.
didn't plant any of them.
No, well, I planted this. I threw the seed out there, and if you look at,
Well, planted them as not seed. Sorry.
and this is right now. This is right now. Look at the leaves of that columbine. Do you see the leaves that are eaten right off? You could walk by that, and if you're not looking for it, you could miss that those stalks don't have any leaves on them anymore. They're in there. They're eating right now. And if you wanted to deal with them, you could do something with a pesticide, even a soap right now, or by hand squishing. But also today, right now, look at the foliage on this columbine. And it's maybe, how far away is this, Steve? Maybe 6 feet?
6 across the path.
Certainly far enough for a sawfly adult to have flown over here. This one, I'm pretty sure that I had two sets of seed. This one has hanging down flowers. I think it's a hybrid, but the hanging down flowers, that habit, that signature characteristic is from the Eastern Columbine. And someone asked us this week, I think it was Terry, said, is it true that the native Columbine, the native Eastern Columbine, is resistant to the sawfly? It may very well be. We certainly don't see as much of it on it. Look at the foliage. It's 6 feet away. They've grown together. These are up facing and they're blue. Our Eastern Columbine is pinkish red and orange. This is one of the hybrids that's hybridized with the Western Columbines, the Mountain State Columbines. And its foliage not only has sawfly working on it and has eaten those leaves away, but can you see the squiggles in the leaves? The leaf miner are working inside the leaf too. And same bulletin has the leaf miner, the life cycle tells you what's going on. Somebody said, well, shoot, if I got leaf miner, those eggs are so small. You're not necessarily looking for the eggs yourself. You're looking for, as with the boxwood leaf miner that we looked at, you're looking for when you see the gnats flying around the plant and trying to control it then. Or you control it the way I do, little specs like that. The way that I do is I wait until it's leaf miner time, and if there's leaf miner in there and these are done blooming, just cut the whole plant down. Just cut the plant down. You're not going to kill it. We never worry
Nope.
about mowing grass down, and but
And you'll get fresh green foliage.
yeah, just cut it down and get rid of go and hot compost the stuff that's there. Or put it in a yard waste bag and send it out to be hot composted.
All right.
Okay.
Michelle is wondering, do you think green and white Tradescantia, wandering Jew, that has been grown in water will grow in soil, roots, and all, or should I just put stems in dirt and let them grow new roots?
The roots that form in water, if you've rooted something in water and let it grow for a while in water, they've grown in weightless conditions. And when you put soil on them, it tends to crush the roots. So if you do that, trim the roots and just let it have the start of the roots and put it in. It'll probably do just fine. That plant is quite the weed, really. Okay. I see a couple questions from
Yeah, Judith has 2 questions. Is dianthus one of those plants that can be cut back and will bloom again?
certainly the hybrid dianthus that are hybrids between the perennial and annual, like allwoodii, will bloom again if you cut them back. Ours will bloom again even if we don't cut them back. But many of the ones that are perennial evergreens, I can't think of any of the names of them. There's one called witch something witch that appear like
Fire witch.
fire witch. Yeah, those that are evergreen and perennial are not real likely to bloom again. They might throw a few blooms off when it gets cool in the fall, but they won't really bloom again. But those softer, lighter green, not blue-green types that are multicolored, and they're quite often sold as annuals. but they're hybrids and they will keep coming back for you.
Okay. Do we know anything about azomite? It's a trace mineral additive, and I saw on YouTube a recommendation to use it with fertilizer to renew old container medium.
It's it's a mineral that has gotten a lot of hype over the years, and I've never tried it, never used it, so I can't talk about it. But I know there's only a limited amount of it in the world, so I don't know that it's something that's going to go everywhere. There was something about it's one of the reasons that the rainforest, tropical rainforest soils keep on being so productive is because of azomite, but I can't really talk about it since I've never tried it.
Yeah, I never heard of it. Judy is that two of her pretty epimediums have been eaten by a bunny family. Dare I hope they will come back with only two, three leaves?
Oh
If the
yeah,
bunnies don't come back again.
yeah. You might have to put a cage around it for a while and let it recover. But plants are amazing what they'll come back from. Trillium can be eaten down and come back, and be eaten down and come back, and they might come back too small to bloom the next year. But they can handle being browsed a couple, three times, and I should think that the epimediums could do the same thing.
Speaking of perennials with woody, Ruth is asking. The rue that was growing in front of the house didn't come back this year. Is it sensitive to changes in winter weather?
Rue, R-U-E,
Yep.
yeah, Ruta graveolens, that's what we used to grow for the black swallowtails. That was perennial, Steve, except that it tended to burn skin, and I didn't want to burn the kid's skin anymore. Um, Rue is a subshrub, and because it's exposed enough in the wintertime, it is more susceptible to changes in the weather. So it could be that it leafed out and got killed back a couple too many times during the wintertime. So start another one. It's a good thing that
Yep.
it's pretty well. I see
Connie
Connie.
has a con
Yeah.
Connie has a comment. I have a friend that uses azomite annually. He's got the best in capital letters, lawn and perennials, and swears by that stuff. She's trying it this season for the first time.
I respect a gardener that has a great lawn and great perennials, but I can't buy into one thing that somebody does making all the difference. You would for me anyway, I need a more scientific look that says they used azomite in this area and did everything the same in this other area and didn't use it. So I can respect a great gardener, but I can't always tell people will do this thing that he does because he might be doing 16 other things that we don't have on the list.
Yep. That's all we have as of right now.
Okay. Look at that grass. I keep trying to get that grass that got itself seeded into that thyme out of there. See it,
What
Steve?
grass?
Ha ha
Oh,
ha.
right there.
Yeah, right there.
Right to the right hand edge near the
Yeah.
golden time.
Yeah, I saw that one was first a seedling, and I've been plucking it out, and it's still just hanging in there. Okay, someone asked about pruning lilacs, and we showed you a different shrub. So we're going to show this time with the beloved lilac. We showed you viburnum, same family as lilacs. It showed you taking this viburnum, which was up there in the second row of brick trim, and we cut it down so that it was below that row, that trim and narrower. And we showed you how we did that. That's in last Friday's. So let's look at a common lilac. Common lilac. This was one of ours. I had already taken two out of there, and it was taller than the house because that's how big they get, common lilac, and it had problems. I said, let's start pruning you and make you good. So first we're going to make it good, and we brought it back to this. It took 3 years, and that's this year. First thing you do is you're going to take out the worst wood, and you can tell it's split away from another trunk. It's got plant trunks that are wrapped around each other. The first thing you do is take out everything that's not doing the shrub a lot of good, like this one that's laying down in between other branches. So that's the first thing I did was take that out and left it with a couple of tall stems, but most of these smaller stems coming up left them to start beefing up. And it was a lot of taking out. That was the year that we put in the fall cypress. And it leafed out fine, but they didn't bloom, not that year or the next year. The next year, I took out the weakest of those stems and kept the strongest ones and let them come up further. Now more stuff is coming up from the base. And then the next year after that, that smaller stuff is big enough to bloom. So to get that to happen to a lilac, you can take an older one like this one, and you can just cut it right down. That's what Janet Shank did in her garden. And then she's got a zillion small shoots coming up that you either let them thin themselves out, or you're going to thin them out yourself. And the reason that you're trying to get the lilac into smaller wood and shorter is because of the lilac borer. Lilac borer is a clear-wing moth. I love Bug Guide. It's a great site and good place for if you've got a good picture of your bug to put it in and see what they say it might be. It's called a clear-wing moth, not apparent in this picture, because the wings are clear. It's a moth. The wing covers have a pattern to them, but the wings are clear. And what that does, this is North Carolina's extension bulletin, and what that does is lays its egg on weak spots on lilac and ash for that matter. And then the youngster hatches out of the egg, chews into the wood, and eats underneath the bark in the cambium, and goes in the wintertime all the way further into the wood. I keep trying to get a picture like this, like Kentucky company has. I've split lots of wood trying to get a picture of that larvae inside. But see all the damage that it's done during the winter. That weakens the wood, and earlier than winter, when it was eating all summer, it was eating the cambium of that trunk. So if you got a lilac this big with trunks that are bigger around than about a pool cue, then you've got borers in there. And borers set the plant up to be weak. So in the summertime, you might get this kind of look. This is probably Cercospora leaf spot. It's killing, and you can see the backside of the leaf is killing. You'll get more mildew, you'll get curling leaves, you get dead leaves, get the ground covered with dead leaves, and you get dead wood building up in it. And that's because the plant has gotten weakened. So you take a lilac like this one, which is too tall anyway, taller than the house, and you start off with thinning out the wood that's there. Take out the bent ones, take out the ones that have damage on them. Take out the ones that there's a borer exit hole. That's where the borer chewed out and pupated as a clear-wing moth and laid more eggs. And they're going to come and they're going to head for weakened spots again. If you take that trunk right out, right down to the ground, don't keep the suckers that come from it. Just go all the way to the ground and take that trunk out. Let these others become pool cue sized. So 2 years later, it was still too tall because it still had tall trunks, and I took those tall trunks out. Then I began just normal thinning, and I do the thinning in the rather than waiting for it to bloom and thinning it out, I do the thinning in the winter. I have lost the bloom that would have come on those branches, but I have done it when I could see what I'm doing and I can thin it out. And it's not taking out very many. You're just taking out a couple branches a year. You got to look real hard to find the branches that are gone. Took this one out from the outside. I thinned out this clump in here. I took something out on the far side, and that's enough. So you're doing that now rather than doing it in the winter, but you can see it better in these pictures. Sometimes it can be hard to get your saw in to do things like take out that branch back there. Not a good idea to put these lilacs right up against the house anyway. Questions about any of that?
Not about the pruning. Diane just bought some woolly thyme. How do we use ours? Looks like as a ground cover. I was going to plant it at the edge of the bed and let it climb/hang over a brick edging. Is a good idea or no?
That works. That works.
Oh,
And yes,
yeah.
we do use it as a ground cover. It's not particularly fragrant, but it's very good as a ground cover. And what we found where we first put it is that we could like roll over it with the wheel of the car occasionally.
It could take a little bit of traffic.
Yeah. So we use it as a spacer. We use it as something where we need something low, and there by the road, we definitely need something low so that the neighbors don't think that we're trying to take over the road or have things hang on the road.
Yet.
Yet.
Yeah,
It's
that's
spring.
it.
Look at that growth. See who wins. Episode 2, people, we had questions coming in the email about what we call our ground cover game of see who wins. We told you about pitting wood poppy against our native perennial geranium, against sweet woodruff again, and told you our rules. Now they're just our rules. They're not cast in stone, and
No,
there's
these
a
are not
Sicilian
these are not the
exception.
10 Commandments in stone.
But one of the ones we use is wood wins. So this shrub, despite the fact that it's getting surrounded by everything else, that the wood is going to win. Height wins, evergreen wins. And then there's a whole lot of things like aggressiveness. But so height and wood are going to win here in this spirea in among all of these other plants. And if I don't keep things away from them, these corydalis, golden bleeding heart that are shorter than everybody else, they're probably going to get swamped, which I have to let happen because this is a shrub bed. St. John's
Yep.
spirea and a spice bush are going to take over this area. And I look all the time and say, well, I wonder if that's really the case, because here's our crambe marittima, which that's as tall as it gets when it's blooming, about 18 inches tall. We have a shrub crescent here of St. John's wort. And some of that St. John's wort looks like it's not appreciating being swamped by the crambe.
Swamped by the cranberry.
We shall see. We shall see.
Maybe it's the size of the leaf of the cranberry.
It could be. It could be, or it could be how air flows through it. There's so many possibilities. Steve's little variegated fall blooming witch hazel is taller than the perennial geranium. This is the geranium macrorhizum, big root perennial geranium, as a ground cover in this bed. And it's tall enough that it's going to hold its own there. The bleeding heart is tall enough that it'll probably hold its own and keep muscling in among the rest of them. Someone asked, they said, well, you planted Sweet Cicely. You dug out ostrich fern and then you planted Sweet Cicely. Are you crazy or what? Sweet Cicely is also a runner. Yes, it is, but Sweet Cicely is in the carrot family, and I was hoping for another black swallowtail host plant, and the carrot family has so far worked for them. This is a perennial, so they're up earlier, and I thought maybe we could do this instead of fennel, which seeds itself around. We'll see.
And so far in that area, that plant's only in 4 years, it's only about a foot bigger than what it was.
Yeah, it's filling in.
It hasn't really shown the aggressiveness of like ostrich fern.
Yeah, but it made me think, and have Steve take another couple pictures.
Hey,
Perennial tends to win too. Perennial wins over annual. So we're looking at sweet woodruff on the left and big geranium on the right. But that sweet woodruff, do you see the height in it? There's two things that are taller in there. Lamium, dead nettle, and this right here, this is called cleavers. This is an annual cousin of sweet woodruff. And although it's taller and it'll lay over the top, cleavers, which is going to stick to you. That's why it's called, it cleaves to you, cleaves to your gloves, to your clothes. It's a funny, sticky plant. That's not going to win out, not most of the time. Although I look sometimes at, for instance, here where I put for quite a while along the driveway, for at least 4 years now, I've been using the annual dayflower. Oh, don't ask me, I've forgotten its botanical name. It's a dayflower. It's related to Tradescantia. And this comes up. We found that the pollinators liked it a lot. It blooms later in the year, so we've let it come up. Now I'm beginning to add perennial ground covers like the alum root, our native Heuchera villosa, and I'm clearing around them to give them the chance to get going, because this is going to be, 18 inches tall, Steve? And it'll slow down. The perennials won't lose, but it'll slow them down and we won't be able to see them. So sometimes you have to do some refereeing. I'm trying to not referee out by the road where that perennial lupin is coming up, and where milder forms of ground cover. This is a dianthus called Bath's Pink, which we like a lot and makes a great ground cover for smaller areas, but it won't stand up to Pearly Everlasting. That's definitely the case. Bath's Pink, it's a very good ground cover perennial carnation. Pretty looking thing. Will it stand up to the crambe? Here's a perennial that not only has a runner like iris roots, it's a rhizome not too far below the surface, but it also seeds itself around. And that can be a problem because it's popped up over here from seed. And it's going to have bigger leaves than other things, and it's perennial. So we'll see how it works out. Refereeing. I'm refereeing at the where I planted the neighbor's garden. This is newer than the area that I showed you before. Took me a while to dig out and kill out the grass on this slope. But now, here's the lupin. The neighbor really liked our lupin, said she'd like to have that. So we put in a couple of blooming size from transplanted them from ours. There are now, about 150 baby lupins coming up everywhere that you're just going to have to figure out something. They won't make it in the long run, not with the shrubs around there, but they could kind of make it look too crazy for a neighbor who's not really a gardener. And you can look at things like annuals that seed themselves around that underneath here somewhere. I know it's there. Oh, there's its branch. We have a weeping white pine. It's the end of our hedge.
Mm-hmm.
And it's woody but we want it to grow, not have to suffocate. I'm going to have to wade in there and pull out some of the plants to give it a chance to catch up with everything else. So
Mhm.
see who wins. See who wins. The perennial geranium is advancing by bigger clumps, but also by seeding itself forward. There's the seedlings coming up. And I wonder what happens when that geranium and the green and gold, Chrysogonum virginianum, reach each other. This is the Pierre Chrysogonum. See
Yep.
the flower is fuller, bigger, leaves are darker green. We'll see.
And not as aggressive of a spreader
At least not so far.
so far.
We have also big leaf aster, our native big leaf aster, and I'm wondering how it will hold up. An Asian dwarf Solomon seal. We put them together and we see what happens. So what we say about height wins, wood wins, evergreen wins, aggressiveness wins. We can't really tell you for sure that those are rules, but they're what our guidelines have been for watching these things. Sorry about flashing pictures in front of me. My hand is
What's the geranium's name?
Geranium macrorhizum, means big root. Macro, big, rhizome, root. Macrorhizum.
That one weed you were showing in the Sweet Woodruff bed straw?
No, not bedstraw. Bedstraw is also a cousin, but it's a perennial cousin. This is Galium annuum. I'm pretty sure it's annuum, but it's an annual, and it's native.
Priscilla was commenting, Commelina.
Camelina. That's the dayflower. Thank you, Camelina. Yes, Camelina something or other. Camelina.
The dayflower. Okay.
Dayflower.
And then Michelle said, I think it was called sticky weed.
Yeah, that's a good name for it too.
Or Velcro plant.
Velcro plant.
And we answered the question of what was geranium, and it's almost 10 after 8.
Okay, then we'll have to go. We'll have to wrap it up, and Steve and I will just on our own redo the.
Well, at least get your questions that were in the chat and early and talk about them that we didn't get recorded. But the hand raised, I don't know if we'll be able to remember. If you want to type the hand raised question in, we might be able to add them.
What did I do?
Okay, so we'll leave in this one then. We have another ground cover issue going on here. We put out the non-native, but it's been here since the Vikings probably brought it way before the Europeans got here in general. This is creeping forget-me-not, and we put it around the pond because it loves to grow in very wet soil, even out onto the water. And I only
It's
expect
thrived.
year. Yes, I have taken grass out to let it come out. But this year, this is moving in.
The geranium.
Perennial geranium's moving in, and it'd be interesting to see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
They can hang it out together. Well, thank you very much for being here tonight.
Yes, thank you all. We
And
have
we
a
will.
good time doing this.
Yep, we do. This is it's great to talk with other gardeners.
Yeah.
So we'll wrap up this Free for All Friday. Our next time we'll be here is next Friday, May 30th. That'll be our 43rd episode. And if you're not already subscribing to our seminars or weekend walkabout seminars, you can still do that. There's 175 webinars in the library already. And on June 7th, we're having What Makes a Good Garden Plant with Richard Hockey from the Chicago Botanic Gardens. I think you will you really
Yeah.
enjoy being there.
Yeah, he's an entertaining person.
Yeah, he's great.